administrations. Again, back to the quote. On multiple occasions in the past year, members of his security detail had difficulty waking Patel because he was seemingly intoxicated. This was Chris was just referencing. And that's according to information supplied to Justice Department and White House officials. A request for breaching equipment, normally used by SWAT and hostage rescue teams to quickly gain entry into buildings, was made last year because Patel had been unreachable behind locked doors. According to multiple...
Read that back one more time. Slowly.SWAT breaching equipment, the kind used in hostage rescue operations. To enter a building fast. That equipment was requested, formally requested, because the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation could not be woken up, not because he was sick, not because of an emergency, because he was, according to security personnel, seemingly intoxicated behind a locked door. This is the man running the FBI. This is the man overseeing counterterrorism operations, child exploitation investigations, organized crime units, and active threat monitoring across the entire United States. The man with the highest security clearance at the nation's top law enforcement agency, Unreachable. Behind a locked door. While the country he is supposed to protect keeps moving, this story didn't come from a political opponent. It didn't come from a whistleblower with an axe to grind or a single disgruntled staffer. The Atlantic's report cites dozens of FBI sources, current and former officials, people who know exactly what they're risking by talking, because Kash Patel, according to this same report, is going after FBI employees with polygraphs in a way that has never happened before at the Bureau. These people talked anyway. And that alone tells you how serious this is.
And it's an explosive news story in The Atlantic that just posted. It cites dozens of FBI sources, which is a big deal. It's a lot of sources in this story detailing new allegations about Patel, including some sources who say Patel is frequently drunk on the job, regularly absent from work, and paranoid about getting fired. And there's quite an anecdote about that we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to read you a few of the key passages because I think that will tell you everything you need to know about this story. Here's one. Several officials told The Atlantic that Patel's drinking has been a recurring source of concern across the government. Early in his tenure, meetings and briefings had to be rescheduled for later in the day as a result of his alcohol-fueled nights. 6 current and former officials and others familiar with Patel's schedule told The Atlantic. As a sidebar, not normal. I've worked in 2 administrations. Again, back to the quote. On multiple occasions in the past year, members of his security detail had difficulty waking Patel because he was seemingly intoxicated. This was Chris was just referencing. And that's according to information supplied to Justice Department and White House officials. A request for breaching equipment, normally used by SWAT and hostage rescue teams to quickly gain entry into buildings, was made last year because Patel had been unreachable behind locked doors, according to multiple people familiar with the request. Multiple officials also tell The Atlantic that Patel is deeply concerned that his job is in jeopardy. Well, that's understandable. In one incident earlier this month, Patel struggled to log into an internal computer system. He quickly became convinced that he had been locked out, and he panicked, frantically calling aides and allies to announce that he had been fired by the White House, according to 9 people familiar with his outreach. 9 people. Now, the access problem turned out to, quote, have been a technical error, and it was quickly resolved, and that's according to 2 people familiar with the matter. Now, I should note MS Now has not independently verified any of this reporting. We've reached out to the FBI for comment, and if we get a response over the next hour, I will surely let you know as soon as we get a response. But I should note the FBI responded to The Atlantic with a graceful and eloquent statement attributed to Patel, and here's what he said. Print it. All false.
All false. I'll see you in court. Bring your checkbook. That's the response. From the director of the FBI to a report backed by dozens of his own employees. That's the statement from the man responsible for enforcing the rule of law in this country. Now let's talk about the computer incident, because if the drinking story is alarming, this story is unraveling in a different way entirely. Kash Patel couldn't log in to an FBI computer, a routine technical error. the kind that happens to every single person who works with secure government systems at some point. It gets a ticket. The issue gets resolved. Normal day. Instead, what happened? Patel panicked. He didn't call it. He called aides. He called allies. He frantically announced to 9 separate people that he had been fired by the White House. 9 people. The reporter didn't say a source. She said 9 people confirmed this happened. And the chaos didn't stay contained. The White House was fielding calls. Congress was calling. There was genuine confusion in that moment about who was actually in charge of the FBI. Think about what that means. Not as a political talking point, as a practical reality. If something had happened that day, a credible threat, an active shooter alert, a terrorism incident requiring the FBI director's immediate sign-off, who was running things? Who was making calls? Nobody could get a clear answer. And this is Sarah Fitzpatrick's most important point. These sources didn't come forward because they're political. They came forward because they're scared. FBI agents who've spent their careers protecting this country, who sleep with their phones on their chest because they understand that life or death decisions sometimes need to be made in seconds. They asked the question that should be on every American's mind right now. Are we pulling resources away from tracking terrorists to manage a director who can't manage himself? Are we pulling people off child exploitation cases to reorganize around an erratic boss? Are we, at the worst possible moment, flying blind because the person at the top is unavailable, unreachable, or unstable? And here's the part that cuts deepest. Patel has now been in this job for nearly 14 months. He's still there. Why? Because according to this reporting, the president sees the Justice Department as a tool, a weapon to go after perceived political enemies. And Patel has been willing to point that weapon wherever Trump directs it. That is the exchange. That is the arrangement. Patel keeps his job. The FBI's resources get diverted. And somewhere, a case that matters, a real threat, a real crime, gets less attention than it deserves. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's what the sources told The Atlantic, under the threat of polygraphs. Knowing the risk. Let's be precise about what we know and what we don't. Miss NBC noted they have not independently verified The Atlantic's reporting. The FBI's official response is that everything in the story is false. A lawsuit has been threatened. Sarah Fitzpatrick stands by every word. The White House and the Justice Department, given 19 detailed questions, disputed nothing. What we do know is this. The Atlantic is one of the most credible investigative publications in the country. Dozens of sources spoke. The detail about SWAT breaching equipment is specific, verifiable, and sourced to multiple people. The computer panic story was confirmed by 9 separate individuals, and the reporter who wrote it is award-winning and says her legal team is solid. You can decide what to believe. But here is the question that should keep you up at night regardless of where you stand politically, if even half of this is true. If the FBI director is, even occasionally, unreachable, impaired, or too paranoid to function at a time when the reporter herself says threats to this country have never been higher, what does that mean for your safety? Because this isn't about Democrat versus Republican. It isn't about whether you like Kash Patel or hate him. It's about whether the most powerful law enforcement agency in the United States has a functioning leader. And right now, dozens of people inside that agency are saying, we're not sure it does. Go read the full Atlantic story. It's long. Read it anyway. Because the details that didn't make this clip, and there are many, are just as alarming as the ones that did. Subscribe if you want the reporting they skip over. Share this with someone who still thinks this is all political theater. And drop a comment, what do you make of an FBI director who needs SWAT equipment to answer his door?